Don and I are going to sit up here, and the first thing I wanted to do is thank him for giving my speeches better than I give them.
I doubt that.
Let's see. Hey, Lynn, why don't you tell us where we need to be for the lights? Right here? Just like this?
I got
handheld? We're good? Sound good? Everybody here all right? Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, thank you guys again for coming today. I'm glad everybody could make it. You know, it's tough being in business. You got to get away from your office, get away from your business, get away from your clients to get out to an important meeting. This is a fundamentally important meeting for the future of our state, of our nation, of our country. I know you know that. I want to appreciate you. I want to applaud you for being here. I'm glad you got to get a dose of Don when we talked on the phone the other day. I said, give it to him, man. Just take the gloves off. Give it to him. You know, they're all adults. They're business owners. They're business leaders. They're where the buck stops to make money, and they want to hear it straight. And I'm really glad that you appreciated that. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Appreciate the opportunity.
Appreciate it. We've got here's the hard part. He's one of those candidates that all of his points that he's hitting on, all the cylinders he's firing on, are initiatives that business, all of our initiatives that BIZPAC is set up that we were working on in the state legislature anyway, right? So Don's over there giving speeches that we've been, working on, and we were just copacetic, so it worked out perfectly. So we're going to hit a couple points here that seem to be important for our members in our agenda. I've got to flip over to the right page, old school. Here we go.
Okay.
Anybody have these? Okay. Do they make my eyes look big? Okay. Election integrity is probably the biggest issue we're facing. It's the number one item that our members keep talking about that we've got to have. The bills for election integrity, and you guys know the dance they're doing in Austin, right? Oh, yeah. Some of them were trading out the finer points, so there wasn't true auditability in the election integrity bills they were passing. So Don spoke about his time in the legislature and his experience there with them, and there's a lot more than what he just talked about, but that horse trading is what kills integrity in all bills. It's what creates pork barrel. So in the election integrity area for the governor, as governor, there are some things that I've heard you talk about that I don't mind if you wouldn't mind going into it a little bit.
Of course. Well, let me just say real quick that Greg Abbott was Attorney General for 12 years. And been governor now for 8. Those are the two positions that are mainly in charge of the elections in the state of Texas, as you know that. The AG enforces the law, the governor appoints the Secretary of State. He usually appoints a Democrat for that position, hopes they're a party switcher. You know how many people work in the AG's office? 4,000. 4,000 people work in the Attorney General's office. He has 750 attorneys. Do you know how many Greg Abbott assigned to voter fraud? 2 attorneys. And today they have 4 assigned. They don't care about voter fraud. He never cared about voter fraud, or he would have done something about it. It's the same with the border. I'm not going to get off track. He's got it. You got to remember now, they've got it the way they want it. They can get anything done in Austin they want. It's not what it seems. How many bills do you think came to the Texas Senate floor and did not pass when I was there? 0. We know where all the votes are. Everything's counted in the back room. Everything you see on the floor is for show. It's all a show. And we're all being hustled. I think it's really important for everyone to understand that this is overall a big hustle. The governor decides which committees chairmen are going to kill which bills. He works and says, okay, Burroughs wants to get killed. Who do we want to kill? Taxpayer-funded lobbying this year. Old Burroughs will do it. Okay, give him that chair. No. That's what they do. It's never what it seems. Let me just give you the point on voter integrity, election integrity. Abbott, number one priority. The first 60 days of session, that's all we can work on is whatever the governor tells us we can work on. It's an emergency item. Well, first it could have been done the first 60 days if he wanted to, the first 90 days. He waits to the very end. And what did the jackasses do? That's their mascot. I didn't pick it. It is. That's their attitude. The jackasses left right before session was over.
Yeah.
Right? They broke quorum. They pulled the same stunt. Everybody knew they're going to do it again. Everybody in the state of Texas, well, yeah, they're going to do that again if he brings it up. So he brings it up, and they break quorum again. But in the interim, right after that, at the end of May, what did he do? He signed 371 Democrat bills into law. 371 Democrat bills into law. Then he signs the budget where he's got line item veto power into law, and they all voted on that. I mean, I was thinking this. That's not just poor leadership. Of course, to dump out your toolbox, but that's just stupid. That's just stupid. And then I thought about it. No, he's playing me. He's playing all of us. More than likely, that was a deal he made. That was a deal all done behind the scenes. You guys can leave. I'm going to go out into the press with Dave Carney and Carl Rowe, and we're going to talk about putting y'all in jail. Y'all already heard that. He was going to put them in jail. Well, you never heard on the press again that he didn't. They know what they're doing. They're playing us. And then when they come back, nothing happens. They've got the authority. The state constitution's got the authority for the House to do anything it wants to those jackbutts. Punish them. They could throw their office furniture out there. They can dock their pay. They can do anything they want. They can do anything. There's no recourse to any of it. 40% of the standing committees in the House are chaired by Democrats.
That's right.
The chairman of the Republican Party, Matt Rinaldi's also endorsed my campaign, is trying to get him to jerk the chairmanships from leaving. But that's not the deal that was made. So I'm just saying, don't think what you see and hear is what really is happening. And unfortunately, that's just the case. I don't like to think we're being lied to. I don't think like I'm being played in a hustle, but we're constantly being lied to. Constantly. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to be accountable. So that's the situation. Oh, real quick on my idea, I'm going to make this quick. On voter security, it's about enforcement. You can have all the laws you want. You can make all new laws. Those are great, but if nobody's enforcing it, what's the point? Right? So we got to have enforcement. You're never going to convict a Democrat for cheating a Republican in Harris County. You can give that deal up. That ain't never happening. So I've got a separate court system I'm going to create, move venues out, separate judge, separate prosecution. I've got a separate law enforcement agency I'm creating. It's called Government Corruption Election Integrity Division, 500 members, mainly highly trained law enforcement. I'm going to put law enforcement between the two parties. People always cheat in elections. Republicans cheat, Democrats cheat. They always have, they always will. I'm putting law enforcement in between to follow the ballots, be central counting. They're going to know who's got the software. They're going to know who owns the stock in the software companies. They're going to know all that stuff about software manipulation. And people are going to have confidence in the elections. I'm going to do everything I need to do to make sure we have confidence in elections. It's the foundation of our constitutional republic. Thank you.
Perfect. That's the answer I was looking for because I knew you had the details on it. Yeah.
Sorry, I got off on the other part. Sorry about that.
Well, they need to hear it. You know, they need to hear it from you. A lot of us were up in the State House and we got to see this. If y'all have been to the State House, if you're in the room and you've been to the Texas State House with us, raise your hand. There you go. I mean, we get around and we see these things. We see this horse trading going on when we're trying to get a simple little bill put through or a simple amendment done, and we're bouncing around 20 offices. We see this happening, but most people never go take that citizen activist role. These people do.
I know.
So appreciate you verifying what we knew was true.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Property tax elimination. We're sick of hearing property tax reduction. We're sick of hearing this because every time we get sold this bill of property tax reduction, I don't know about you, but I was paying a teacher's salary at my house in Memorial. I don't know where you're at. I'm paying a teacher's salary in property tax every year. I'm renting this thing for a teacher's salary. Okay. I don't mind paying a teacher's salary, you know, if I'm sending them to private school or something like that. So Don has a good, sound plan, and I'd like it if you'd tell them about it, how you plan to phase out property tax.
Of course. Thank you, Joe. Well, this has been a priority of the Republican Party for many years. It's in our current platform. It's a plank. It's a terrible tax. Y'all tired of renting your houses and your property from the government? I mean, it's just a bad tax. The rent keeps going up, and you never really have any say in it, and you think it's bad now. You just give it a few years of inflation, it's going to max out. You know, half is paid by businesses and half is paid by residents, approximately. And this is something we can do. It's a math problem. It's $70 billion a year now coming in from all the political subdivisions. I've worked on it for months before I got into the campaign. I was working on it. I don't know if you guys know Texas Public Policy Foundation. They've got some experts on all this. So the best way to do it, we're going to phase it out over 8 years. We thought it was 10 years, but now with the revenues up, we can do it in 8 years. The best way is not to spend all of our money. Our state revenues grow at about 8%, 7 to 8% annually. And if we cap state spending like at 2%, we can take that revenue growth, that difference, and buy down property tax, which is about $6 to $7 billion a year. We're going to move some of the property tax over to consumption tax, the sales tax, and we're going to get rid of it in 8 years. We'll keep everything fully funded, so all the revenue will come from the state, all the state revenue buckets, which is, you know, hotel, motel tax, liquor tax, oil and gas tax, sales tax, things like that. So the school district's funding will stay the same. That's all set up by the state legislature. And the good news is it's going to be a constitutional amendment, so you get to vote on it. I want to make sure everybody weighs in on it and has the way to make a final call if you want to get rid of it or not. Whatever that final legislation that comes out, I want to cut the head off that snake so it won't grow back. We don't end up with two. We're never going to have an income tax, of course, in Texas. But there's one thing you got to have to make this happen, or anything else happen in Texas, like securing the border or anything else. You got to have one thing. You got to have a governor that champions it. You're not getting to the 1-inch line if you got a weak governor who doesn't want to show leadership. And it's just a political windsock. I'm here to make it happen. We can do it. And I just want to point out the wealth it creates. It is unimaginable. We ran some numbers. They've been running numbers. And we're over $100 billion overnight in net wealth creation in Texas, and we can't even measure it. It's so massive. You guys in real estate would know your NOI is your net operating income. Of course, your number one expense you have for your expenses on a rental property is property tax by far. Now you're going to sell that building or whatever you're selling at a multiple of your NOI. You're selling it at a minimum of 15 to 25 multiple. If you pay $100,000 in property tax, your property just went up $2 million in value. And so now businesses will be freed up to have more research and development, to hire better team members, to actually make money. And Texans are going to be freed up to actually own something. You never own anything in Texas, in the United States. You don't own your own home. You don't own your own ranch, your farm, your business, nothing. The government owns it all, and if you don't pay them the rent, guess what? They'll kick you out, and you're just wait and see what happens. And my team told me, hey, Huffines, every state's got property tax. I said, yeah. And they said, they think every country's got property tax. I said, yes. Finally, Texas is going to be the leader in something.
Right.
It's very doable, and I'm telling you guys, it can happen. I know it sounds far-fetched. And a lot of people think this just sounds stupid. That's political promises. That's all this and that. I'm telling you, it isn't. We're going to get this done. I'm telling you, we can get it done. I promise you, I will.
We want it done.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get it done. We cannot keep this process going.
Right.
What's the end game? I mean, really, what's our end game?
Socialism is our end game.
Well, yeah, but look, half your mortgage in Houston is a property tax,
right.
or 2/3 of it. Same
That's
in
right.
Dallas County. I mean, just imagine what you can do. And when you look on your mortgage statement, you see how much you're putting on property versus, it's not sustainable. Anyway.
That's exactly right. The same people that are in the State House telling you that they're going to lower your property taxes. I'm not naming names, but it rhymes. No, I'm not naming names.
I'll name them.
But they run the biggest property tax consulting firms in their community. Look into it. See if I'm wrong. Okay. Moving on. Okay. One of the things that didn't happen during the lockdowns that we, as a group, BIZPAC almost unilaterally said, why in the world don't we have a special session called? What do you mean the legislature doesn't have the ability to call its own special session? Only the governor can call a special session? Right?
That's correct.
These were kind of our reactions. So during this, as a result of that, we got to see certain behaviors out of our current governor, right? What's your plan?
Well, I'd be happy to put that as a constitutional amendment that the legislature could call a special session. And if Abbott wanted to shred our Constitution, that he did, and he obviously wanted to, at least he could have gone to the legislature. If I am presented with that type of situation, I would never take away people's liberty. So I would work always to make sure your liberties and your God-given liberties are protected. At the same time, I would work to educate the Texans and things like that. But at the minimum, you go to the legislature, and the legislature can make the decision, and you bring them involved. But overall, I trust millions and millions of Texans to make the best decisions for themselves. I don't trust 181 people down in Austin. I trust people. It's the power of the individual of making the best decisions, your medical decisions, your personal decisions, your health decisions, your education. People are going to always make the best decisions that fit them in their life.
Right.
And that's what I'm about.
That's exactly right. Well, when the lockdowns started a year and a half ago, roughly, something like that, we all around BIZPAC, we kept expecting there to be a special session called so that our elected representatives, our elected senators could get together, could work through the information, sort through it, and then start making some good decisions to stop the czar-like behavior of our certain county and city officials.
Right.
And that is not what happened. And it was a two-week deal, and we were trying to get that stopped, and we had no recourse. And we had a deaf ear up there in the governor's office. We're sitting there watching our current governor. I'll just say it like this. If Dr. Fauci were a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop, our current governor could tell you how many licks it takes to get to the center. Okay. I said it on camera.
That was really funny.
You're welcome to use that. You're welcome to use that. Okay?
I like that. That was really funny.
One of the things that drives us out of our mind when BIZPAC is up in the legislature, and we've been working on this for 2 sessions, is our taxpayer money goes to pay lobbyists for state-funded commissions and institutions to lobby to raise our taxes. If y'all want to throw up, go right ahead. And we've been trying to get taxpayer-funded lobbying. We've been trying to get that to stop. We've been trying to put the brakes on this thing. If you don't think lobbying is a problem, let me address this one simple thing for you. There are 9 full-time paid lobbyists for every single legislator, representative, senator, every state commission, including DPS, right? State Health Commission, and on and on and on and on. There are 9 full-time paid. You know what these lobbyists are paid? They're not paid a little bit of money. They're paid very well, and they're full-time. So when our state legislature is in session for a little less than 6 months, until we have special sessions every 2 years, these lobbyists are hammering away in concert with one another, working against your and my best interest because all they want is your and my money. Yeah. Tell us where you're at on that, Don.
Oh, of course I'm against that, and I can tell you some stories here real fast. I won't make them long. But when I said that they don't like being accountable to you, the Republicans, who they do want to be accountable to is the lobbyist, the money. And what they would talk about in our caucus meetings more than anyone else, who they wanted to be accountable to was the Democrats. They were always talking about how they're going to make the Democrats happy. What do the Democrats think? How are they going to respond to these issues? They never talked about the grassroots or the business community, really. They didn't talk about much of that. When I got rid of Dallas County Schools, that corrupt agency in Dallas, y'all have one in here, Harris County Schools, they spent $1.3 million to beat my bill to close them down of stolen taxpayer money. They paid lobbyists. When we closed them down, they sent another $200,000 bill down there. And I said, well, whatever you do, don't pay that one. And because they were out of, but anyway, I tried to audit. Let me just tell this quick story. A forensic audit. I've called one for our elections for years. But I also wanted to audit. I'm a business guy. I wanted to audit the tollway authorities. They deal with a lot of cash, you know. So I picked a small one, the one in Austin. And so I got a bill done. And they came in there with this huge lobby group, like 4 or 5, 6 people, paying them hundreds of thousands. I don't know what they ended up paying them, trying to make sure that my bill wouldn't pass to have a forensic audit on a tollway authority. They said, we're already audited. We sell a lot of paper. You know, they go to the market and sell a lot of paper and bonds. And I said, so did Dallas County Schools, and they were stealing tens of millions of dollars. I said, that didn't give me any confidence. You're making me very nervous. Very, very nervous. And they would push back completely. There is no one in Austin watching over this stuff. There's no one. There's no even a bureaucrat watching over another bureaucrat. We spend $100 million a day. And they were spending lots of government
Right.
using the lobbyists to protect their situation. Of course, I'm against
Exactly right.
Yeah.
It's basically an unregulated area of government. They have intentionally not regulated that.
Absolutely.
And they've only got
Yeah.
3 people that investigate the state attorney general's office. So that's all they're dedicated to. Do you know that?
I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
Well, look, they hire, the cities will hire the lobbyists with your tax dollars to screw you. No, that's what they
That's
do.
the truth. Your school districts
Yeah,
do it.
same with the school district.
Your school districts hire a lobbyist to work against you,
Right.
the taxpayer, to raise your taxes to the maximum. Okay.
With your money.
Okay. So if you want to unelect certain school board members, that's a good start, you know, right? That's one of the things. So, okay, we're short on time. We got 10
sorry.
minutes for a hard stop, and there's another issue I think we ought to talk about.
Okay.
We had those rolling blackouts and everybody got to enjoy the winter weather here in Texas. It was great. Yeah. Texas I will give you a little background, a little telemetry on this. Texas has more power plants, produces more electricity than any other state in the United States. We produce enough electricity for Texas and 7 other surrounding states. A lot of people don't know that. We have more power plants, 3 nuclear. We even have a couple coal plants. We've got more natural gas plants than anybody, and we have the most renewable energy of any other state. Can you believe Texas, the largest energy producer, talking natural gas and oil products, we are the largest electricity producer, and we have the most renewable. California and New York State did a study, their legislatures, as liberal as they are, and their study came back and said, whatever you do not be more than 8% dependent on renewables because they're unreliable. They're nice to have when the sun's out and the wind's blowing at the right speed, but anything else, they're unreliable. Who in this room can tell me the percentage of renewables that we have in Texas? Not you, Angela, I told you the answer. 24%. How do you like that? Now, I have one other in this algebraic equation that I'm laying the puzzle pieces out for. How much more money does an electric producer, electric retail, how much more money do they get when they pump a kilowatt hour across the state lines on those big overhead lines? Do you know? A nickel more per kilowatt hour, and they sell it in the terawatts across state lines. So we produced all this electricity right here in Texas, and for a nickel more a kilowatt hour, they blacked your power out. They popped your pipes. They flooded your house. They froze our friends 66 Texans to death. Did you know that? That's a true story. Now, I'm going to let Don clean this up here because I know he's got a plan.
Well, this is a complicated topic, but I can tell you that everybody in Austin, or most legislators in Austin, all know about ERCOT. It's not something we don't know about. It's something we deal with every session. It was no surprise. Our governors, you know, got the renewable award, energy award, just 30 days before we had our blackout. I think what I would do is just preface by saying that Texas always had an independent grid. We were independent of the FERC system. That's why we call it the ERC system, not the federal system. We worked for 100 years, ever since electricity was created, to make sure we were not cross-pollinated with the federal system. And we were the envy of the world, really, the envy of the world, not just the United States. Everybody in the United States is in this space knew we were definitely the best. But then under Abbott's administration and the previous administration, they've lost their total focus. There's no one down there paying any attention to it. They started selling juice like Joe was saying across state lines. They got all into the wind renewables. They wanted to be the coolest guys in the country and all that stuff, like the coolest members of the club. And so then they run those distribution systems over to Alabama and everywhere else. And we've just lost our focus completely. And Abbott was the leader. He's the one, the buck rests on his desk. He put 3 of his family friends as PUC chairman. I mean, and they didn't, I interviewed one of them. I said, oh my gosh, this person's running the PUC, seriously? I mean, I couldn't believe it. And they appointed all the ERCOT board. Now I can go on and on all the mistakes that were made. They did clean it up some this session. They changed the governance of the ERCOT. But you know, we had people in Germany on our board, on the ERCOT. We had people in Michigan, all over the country. It's just a disaster. It was a disaster waiting to happen. We were within 4 minutes of a complete electrical meltdown of our whole grid. We would have been out without electricity for months, a month at least, and maybe 2 or 3 months. Hundreds, if not thousands of people would have died. As it was, we still had a huge catastrophe. We think over $18 billion in actual damages. If you own any real estate, I'm sure your pipe's probably broke. But anyway, I think the most important thing we need to do is make the renewables dependent and purchase electricity when they're not able to generate it. So they've got to be responsible for a 24/7 electrical generation process. We need to get back to our fossil fuels and get off of the renewables. The whole wind thing is an ecological disaster. I don't know if y'all been in West Texas. Have you seen these things? I mean, you look at an appraisal today on a ranch, if you can see them, you've lost 30% of your value. And you get no benefit out of the wind turbines. They pay $1,500 to $2,000 per turbine on the rent, but you get no benefit, but you get all the negative. Because who wants to buy a ranch and just see? Have y'all ever flown and looked out the window between like Midland and Amarillo or Corpus Christi and Amarillo? Get a window seat. It's really shocking. It really is.
The funniest thing about it is, so we've got 24% renewables, about 20% of that, or a little more than that, is actually wind, and it's all in Tornado Alley. I drove through it, and about a third of the turbines were down. We're at end of life cycle on a good number of them. When they hit 14 years, the vibration of those giant blades, every time it vibrates, a fiber in the fiberglass braid pops over a 14-year period, especially in Tornado Alley. These things start breaking down. So instead of 20 years, the payback on a windmill, at the 14-year mark, they're already starting to break down. So this is naturally occurring. It's not sustainable. There's no way that you can make wind work without giant government grants.
That's right.
And guess who pays a tariff on every electric bill to connect all those windmills to the power grid? Guess who pays it? You and you and you and you and you. And you and you and you. We all paid to connect these windmills, whether we wanted to or not.
Yeah, it's all subsidy. We got to stop all the subsidies. Mark was saying there's 312. We got to stop it all, and we can. I mean, there's you can't recycle those blades. No, really, they're stacked up.
They stack them in a hole in the ground.
Out there, 200 feet tall, 100 feet tall. These 100-foot long blades, and yeah, well, they're just
they dig a hole in the ground in Wyoming is what they do, and they bury them, but there's nothing they can do with them.
It's a disaster, guys.
They were worried about how they would energize a giant grinder to grind up the windmill blades, and they tried to put a windmill farm to generate the power, but we can get into 313 and how that funded, chapter 313, and you can talk to Mark after the meeting about that. You need to know what happened there. You can watch the video about that of Kathy interviewing Mark. Actually, Kathy did an interview with me when I was a hippie. My hair was 11 inches longer. It wasn't that long ago before I cut it off. But both of those interviews will give you all the details about it and what the impacts were to Texas over a 22-year period, and how the rhinos started out being elected in the school districts, handing out tax abatement to big companies, getting giant war chests, and making it into the state house. And that's where a lot of those rhinos came from. We're almost out of time. In closing, we don't have enough time, I'm sorry, we don't have enough time for questions, but what we do have time for, right, is a standing ovation for Don Huffines.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Very kind. Thank you. Very kind. I do appreciate it. If you want to get involved in the campaign, just go to donhuffines.com and you can press endorse and a button and make a donation. I'll let you know that from May the 12th to June 30th, I reported in raising over $9 million. And of course, I am the lead investor. I say you too can be a lead investor. There's no campaign limits in Texas. You can donate whatever you want. And so the fundraising is going great. The campaign's going great. You probably saw 2 weeks ago we released our endorsement for Senator Rand Paul.
Awesome.
He understands the significance of this campaign for the country. We've got other endorsements we've rolled out. Katrina Pearson, she was with Trump for 5 years, and others that we're rolling all out. So I encourage you to get involved. It's going to be a new day for Texas. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. They love it. Thank you. Hey, I want to encourage all of you to hang around and visit with Don.
Yeah.
Come up, talk to him, get a picture with him. And if any of the other leaders in the different legislative areas, they're all in the room. If you're interested in those areas, go to them. We need as much help as we can get at the Texas Capitol. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.